Hey everyone, it's Megan here from Meghan Makes Do, and we are on week 4 of the Bowden Cardigan Crochet Along. And you guys, this is the last week. I can't believe that we've made it this far and we are ready to seam all 5 panels together. So you should have your sleeves, your front panels, and your back panels. I'm going to lay them out over here on my bed to show you exactly how and where to seam your cardigan together. We're going to lay everything out flat first, and I'll show you how the front panels join with the back and how the sleeves join on the front and back. And then we're going to fold the whole thing in half once we get those seamed together, and I'll show you how to do the underarm and down the side seams. So you can use whichever seaming method you prefer. I typically do the mattress stitch. That seems to give me the best results for my seams. But go ahead and use whatever method you feel most comfortable with. I promise it'll still look great. So let's go ahead and I'm going to turn the camera around and show you how to seam. And then once the seaming is done, I'm going to show you how to add your applied ribbed collar all the way around the front of your cardigan. And then all we have to do is weave an ends, block, and we're done. I can't believe we made it. So congratulations on making it this far. And let's go ahead and I'll show you how to seam. Okay, so I've gotten my panels laid out. This is my back panel. The ribbed bottom is there. Front panels, ribbed bottom is down here. So our shoulder seams, we're just going to seam the front panels right along the top of the back panels, starting at the end and working our way in. Then for the sleeves, we want to make sure we line up the center stitch of the sleeve with the center seam of the shoulder, and then we'll seam. I like to start in the middle and use one long piece of yarn and seam from one side down, other side down, making sure that I am seaming the sleeve the same number of rows down on the front panel as I do on the back panel. And then I repeat that process on the other side. So I'm going to show you the mattress stitch. Hopefully you can see it okay. I know I used black yarn, but hopefully you can kind of get the idea. I'll make sure I've got plenty of lighting so you can see, but I'll show you briefly how I do the mattress stitch, and then I'll show you what it looks like once we have all of these panels seamed together flat like this. Okay, so before I grab my panels and show you how I like to do the mattress stitch seaming, I just want to point out the instructions in the pattern. You can see that they are laid out just like how they were when I laid them out for you physically. And you can see that where the blue lines are, that is where your seams will be. Obviously, the gap between the neckline is a little bit larger in real life than it is reflected here. But I also indicate how many unworked stitches along the back panel neckline you will have. So make sure that you're matching up those stitches accordingly. And then once we get this seaming done, we fold everything in half, and then we can seam from, I usually go from the underarm down to the end of the sleeve and then back up from the underarm down to the bottom of the cardigan. But we'll just have those few seams there, and then we'll be ready to add our collar. But let me go ahead and show you how I like to seam my panels together. Okay, so here is my back panel. I think I have cat hair all over it because my cat likes to lay on everything as I work. So don't mind any cat hair that you might see. And then this is one of my front panels, and I have them right side up, and I'm going to line them up from this side edge here to the center of the neckline. So I left a long tail at the end of this front panel. So I can use that long tail with my tapestry needle, thread that on there. And then hopefully, even though it's black yarn, you'll be able to see the stitches that I'm going through, and I'll kind of walk you through and tell you exactly what I'm doing as I do it. Okay, so I went ahead and turned my ring light on, and then I zoomed in a little bit, so hopefully you can see a little better what I'm doing here. But you can see that we have the tops of our stitches on each panel. And so since our yarn is attached to the front, I'm going to go through the back panel stitch first, and I'm going to go from the inside of the seam out. And then I'm going to go through that first stitch of the front panel from the inside of the seam out. Pull those together. And then I'm just going to repeat that for each stitch. So through the second stitch on the back and through the second stitch on the front. Third stitch on the back, third stitch on the front. And we're just kind of going back and forth in a zigzag, attaching those stitches, the coordinating stitches, together. And we're going to just do this all the way along until we've run out of stitches on our front panel. And then we can weave in those ends and repeat the process with the second front panel. But you can see we're getting almost an invisible seam here, especially using the black yarn. It pretty much disappears. So just continue that until you've gotten all of the front and back panel seamed together. So now that we have our front panel and back panel together, hopefully you can see this is our seam, our shoulder seam right here. And I've already marked out where my center stitch is on my sleeve. This is my sleeve. So I want to line up my center stitch with that seam. And I can just kind of use my stitch marker to lock that in place. And then I do recommend using at least 3 stitch markers when you're attaching your sleeve to your main body of your cardigan. And that will help you make sure that you're getting it lined up where it needs to go. And the easiest way to do that is start with one end. Slide this down so you can see. And we just want to, with the center lined up with the shoulder seam, you want to kind of just nicely lay it flat and then count how many of our rows we've gone down where we're going to attach the end of our sleeve. So let me get that in place there. Can you see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, 29, 31, about 31, almost to 32 rows down. So when we're marking where the other side of our sleeve is going to be on the back panel, we want to make sure that we're counting that same number going down and placing a stitch marker here, which I think my stitch marker actually just fell behind my desk. So let me grab it real quick. Okay, so I've counted down to about 31 rows. So I'm going to mark my stitch marker there as well. That way we know we're getting our sleeve evenly on the front and the back. Then what we want to do, let me find my long tail of yarn, or strand of yarn I should say. Okay, so I've got my long tail of, long strand of yarn I should say, it's not attached to anything. And I want to use my tapestry needle again, and this time we're going to do it a little bit different because we want to start in this center where the shoulder seam is. So make sure we're lining up that center stitch with the center shoulder seam, and we can bring our yarn through that shoulder seam from the seam out. And then I like to make sure I have about half the yarn tail on one end and half the yarn tail on the other. So I'm going to use this tail, like this side of the yarn, to seam the sleeve to the back, and then I'll take this end of the yarn to seam the sleeve to the front. So since we're attached here already, we want to go through the center stitch of our sleeve, again from that seam that we're creating out, and then we want to go into the edge of our back panel, and same as we did before for the mattress stitch, we're just zigzagging back and forth between the stitch on the sleeve and the row edges. So I have about 35 stitches, 34 if you don't include the center stitch, but I have 31 rows. So I'm going to have to skip a few rows, or no, sorry, add an extra stitch into some of those rows as I go to get it nice and even. But we just continue to zigzag back and forth, trying to get that seam as flat as possible. Another option too is, instead of going kind of up through like this, you can also kind of weave it into the edge like that to kind of pull that side in a little bit. And the nice thing about this is it's pretty easy to take the seam out if for some reason it's puckering a little bit or you're just not happy with the final look of it. You can take it out and try something new. But we're just going to continue to seam all the way down till we hit that stitch marker, and then we'll pick up this tail of yarn and we'll seam down the other side. And then you just repeat those steps on the opposite sleeve, and then we'll be ready to do the underarm and side seams as well. Okay, so once you get your sleeves and your shoulders seamed, you want to fold your cardigan in half. So here you can see this is our shoulder seam, this is our sleeve. I folded it down, and then you seam the sleeve all the way down to the cuff, and then you seam the side all the way down to the bottom ribbing. And then because of the way that the single crochet front loop only works, you kind of get these little like ridged lines here, so you can kind of use those as a guide to try to keep you as straight as possible on your seams for both the side and the underarm. Try to get those lines to line up all the way down to the bottom here. But you can use the mattress stitch or whichever seaming method you prefer. And once you have both sides fully seamed and everything's ready, you can weave in any ends that you have if you want, or you can jump right into adding the ribbed collar, which I will be showing you right now. The last step is to add the applied ribbed collar all the way around the front of the neckline. So we're going to start with the right side of the cardigan facing us on the bottom of the right side of our cardigan. And when I say right side, I mean when you're wearing it, it's on your right side. So right down here, what we want to do is in the very bottom of our ribbing, we want to join a piece of color A, and then chain one, and we're going to single crochet all the way around. So we want to work a single crochet into that same stitches are joined in each one of those stitches of the ribbing. So we should have 7 stitches into the ribbing here. And then we want to work a single crochet into each row edge going all the way up. So we have 91 rows. So we want to make sure we have 91 stitches going up the side. And then we'll just continue evenly working single crochets. So put 1 single crochet into each row edge all the way around. When you get to the neckline, you'll put a single crochet into each stitch across the neck, down on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick, and then I'll meet you when we get all the way back to the other side of the front, on the left side of our cardigan. Okay, so we're just working these last few stitches into the ribbing. And now our setup row of single crochets is complete, and we can start the applied ribbing. So it's fairly simple. We're going to chain 8. That was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then going back across those chains, we're going to skip the first one and into the second chain from the hook. We're going to single crochet into each stitch across. So we should end up with 7 single crochets. And then we want to turn so that we can slip stitch into those single crochet stitches along our edge. And we want to single or slip stitch into the next 2 single crochets along the edge. So that first one we're not slipping into because that's technically this row right here. Okay, so we've slip stitched 2, and then we're going to turn. There's no need to chain. Those slip stitches count as your chain. So this is a little bit finicky. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. We're going to skip over the 2 slip stitches and then work into the back loop only of each single crochet for our ribbing. Oh my goodness, come on. There we go. Dropping my cardigan. So we'll single crochet back loop only for 7. And then after that, our next row, so that was a row 2. For row 3, we're going to chain 1 and turn. And we'll work back across the ribbing and then slip stitch into the next 2 stitches along the edge of our cardigan. So again, we're single crocheting back loop only. So we should have 7 single crochets. And then we will slip stitch into the next 2 stitches along our cardigan edge. And then we just repeat those 2 rows all the way around our neckline. So again, turn, skip those 2 slip stitches, and work single crochet back loop only in each stitch across. Chain 1, turn, and then do another row 3 repeat. So we're just repeating rows 2 and 3. Oh my goodness, more cat hair. Until we get back over to that front right edge of our cardigan. So again, slip stitch 2, and just keep doing those 2 rows over and over again, and you'll see your ribbing will start to go all the way up, and we're just, those slip stitches help us join it to that front edge of our cardigan. So continue on, and I'll meet you back here when we are all finished. Okay, so I just finished up this row. I'm about to do my 2 slip stitches. Unfortunately, I have 2 stitches left to slip into. We're going to turn and do 1 more row, so skip those 2 slip stitches and then single crochet, back loop only, all the way across. If you happen to pick up more or less stitches than I did and you end up having only 1 stitch to slip into, then you would just stop there, because each slip stitch counts as like one end of like a row. But here you can see we've got it nice and evenly lined up here. So I'm just going to fasten off, and then you can weave in any remaining ends that you might have, and you will be all done with your cardigan. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like once everything is complete. So once you have all your ends woven in, you'll have your wonderful new Bowden cardigan to wear and enjoy. I hope that you had so much fun doing this crochet along with me. I can't wait to see all of your finished Bowden cardigans. Don't forget to tag me, Meghan Makes Do, and use hashtag Bowden Cardigan Cal so I can share your work with everyone else. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more.